Hello, and welcome to Let's Play Freelancer. My name is Marlo, and this is one of my favorite PC games of all time. Freelancer was released in about 2003. It was the product of Digital Anvil Studios, and it was published by Microsoft. It was the brainchild of Chris Roberts. Yes, that Chris Roberts. Um, and although I think the game was actually finished by somebody else, it kind of had a slightly troubled development history that you can read about if you really are interested in those sort of things. But it is a space sim game, although I use that term very loosely in this game. It's certainly not a sim in the very detailed ways that, say, the X series is, as in, X3, Terran Conflict, or Albion Prelude. It's not quite to that level. It's a little more arcadey in a way, um, but it has a good storyline, which we're going to play through. The voice acting is shockingly good for a PC game, especially a PC game made back then. The graphics are okay. It was 2003, so we're kind of thinking PlayStation 2 era graphics, which I think will be kind of apparent when you see the character models in the cutscenes. But of course, that's not what this game was really about. The majority of the game takes place in space. You fly your ship from a third-person perspective. You use the mouse and keyboard. You actually cannot use a controller or joystick in this game. I remember at the time that was a somewhat controversial decision to not allow players to use a joystick. But the control scheme works really well, I think. You maneuver your ship with the mouse. You can fire weapons with the mouse, and there are a few keyboard shortcuts that you use to do various other things, like adjusting engine speed and strafing and, things like that. Now, you'll notice the black bars around the side of the the image here on the screen. There are mods out there where you can play this in widescreen. They're kind of a pain in the butt, so we're not using them. Also, I've had a horrible time getting this game to record in anything that approaches a watchable form. So we don't really have that option. I've also got some of the graphics options turned off because they were causing some problems with recordings. The planet behind me can have an atmosphere, and the planets in game have an atmosphere that you can, see. But I've turned those off because it was causing a lot of screen flicker. I've turned off a couple of other things. There's some animation to your HUD display, just little lines that travel back and forth. They really don't add anything. I turned those off for the same reason. And also, you would normally see a little box pop up in your screen right up here in the left-hand corner when someone is talking to you, ship-to-ship communications. I have turned off those animations because that seemed to have been causing problems as well. You'll still see a little box pop up, but it won't have the picture of the person. It'll just say their name, and so you know who's talking. But it really doesn't have any effect on gameplay. But those are things that if you play the game at home and you're not recording, you can turn on, and it won't be a problem for you at all. So yeah, we've made those little tweaks, little concessions for the sake of the recording, but otherwise we're going to play the game as it is. Now, unfortunately, I'd love to tell you that you can buy this game on Steam or GOG or Gamersgate or somewhere, but as far as I know, this thing is unobtainium. The only place I know you can get it is on eBay, and buying the literal physical disc. That's how I'm playing with the disc that I bought back in 2003. Thank goodness I still have it, because like I say, I don't know of any way that you can purchase the game digitally. It's a crying shame because it's an excellent game. It has its limitations, but it's an excellent game. It's very well done. And if you look around the wilds of the internet, you'll see a lot of people out there who like space games and who will say that there have been some good games since in that genre, but none have quite captured you know, the feel and fun of Freelancer. Now, I will say that from what I have seen of Starpoint Gemini 2, the beta that's currently available on Steam, it it uh, it looks to me to have been heavily inspired by Freelancer. It looks like it has a very similar feel and style of gameplay as Freelancer, and so while I have not purchased and played that yet, I plan to, because like I said before, really enjoy this particular game. So we're going to start a new game, but I think we're going to wait until the next episode to do that. We'll just have this be our little introduction. Um, well, I suppose I should give a little background. Uh, this game is kind of a sequel in a way to, chronologically anyway, to the game Starlancer, which was a spaceflight combat sim, a more traditional spaceflight combat sim. In that game, humans were at war with each other. There were two factions made up of coalitions of various countries, and I believe the player, I'd never played Starlancer, but I believe the player played as the Alliance. The Alliance was composed of various countries, but the main players in the Alliance were the United States, Great Britain, Germany, Japan, very NATO-ish in a lot of ways. And the story of this game is that the war was going poorly for the Alliance, and the Alliance sent out sleeper ships, big colonizers, with people in stasis, millions of people in stasis, one from each of those countries that I just named, and sent them to a sector of space far away from the conflict, with the hope that humanity would be able to start again. So that's where we are. We're in that new sector of space. When this game starts, 800 years have passed since the sleeper ships were sent out. Each sleeper ship landed in its own little spot and started its own, essentially, country in space. They're called houses in this game, but they're essentially countries that are made up of a variety of systems. So there's House Liberty, House Britannia, House Kusari, and House Rhineland. The houses are named after the names of the sleeper ships that founded those particular colonies. And of course the Liberty came from America, Kusari came from Japan, the Britannia came from Great Britain, and the Rhineland came from Germany. So all the kind of countries in this game are going to be influenced by that, culturally speaking. But there are a lot of factions in this game that you can have reputations with. The game keeps track of your actions, and your actions do have consequences when it comes to your interaction with various groups. There are militaries, there are police forces, there are corporations, there are pirate groups, there are rebel groups, there are terrorist organizations. There's even a drug cartel, a big drug cartel in this game. And a hacker group. So a wide variety of groups. You can, to some extent, go anywhere you want. You're constrained a little bit in the story mode, which is what we're going to do in this game. But once the story is over, you're free to explore, and I can tell you, you only see a small fraction of the systems that exist in this game in the story mode. There's a lot left to explore when you get done. There are also some really good modifications for this game that we are not using. Two of the best, I think, are the Discovery mod and the Crossfire mod. There are others, but I think those two probably stand above the rest. My personal favorite is the Discovery mod. I've spent a lot of time playing on their multiplayer server. It's a role-playing server, so you kind of have to be into that sort of thing. But if you're a big dork like me, it's a lot of fun, and it adds a lot to the game that's not here in the vanilla game. So the game allows us to pilot various kinds of ships. There are light, heavy, and very heavy fighters. There are also freighters that you can fly, although they're fairly small freighters. There's a lot of big ships, big freighters, big transports, and capital ships that you cannot fly in the vanilla version of the game. mods that I was mentioning changed some of that, where you can fly those ships. So if you want to do that, you really want to look at some of those modifications. But we're going to play the vanilla game as it was released in 2003. We're going to play through the storyline, which you know, the story won't set the world on fire, but I think it's good enough. It is about a MacGuffin, but well, you got to have a MacGuffin, right? Even the Lord of the Rings has a MacGuffin. But we're in version 1.0. There were a couple, 2 or 3 official patches released for the game, but they were mostly to do with server kind of stuff for multiplayer. They didn't have much of an effect on the single player game, so we don't really have to worry about that. But at any rate, when we come back, we're going to start the new game. We're going to watch all the cutscenes. They don't last long, and I think they add a lot to the game, and of course otherwise you don't really know what the story is. You do get some of the story in-game through conversation between characters while you're on missions. I'm going to do my best not to talk over the characters while we are in game. I'm not going to talk at all during the cutscenes. I'm going to let the cutscenes do their thing. But I'm going to do my best not to talk over the characters while we're in game. It might be hard for me to do that, but I'm going to try so that you can hear what's going on, because there are some story elements that are brought out, not in a cutscene, but actually in game. So, right. Okay, when we come back, we're going to start the game, and, well, we'll see the opening cutscenes and go through some of the basics before we start our first mission. It'll be fun.